What's going on, guys? This is the RPO College Football Podcast. Your favorite college football podcast. Just let it be known that this is your favorite college football podcast. I'm your host, Jerome Jones. I'm here with my guys, the GOATs, and obviously, the man, the Mr. Legend, Mr. Ray Roberts over here. How you doing, Ray?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing great. Football's about to come soon. I'm excited. And we got my guy over down here, LaMarcus Bailey. How you doing, LaMarcus?
Man, I'm doing great. Just happy to be back, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah. Oh, as always, man. And I'm very grateful to be here. Very, very grateful to be talking some college football with my favorite guys. And I'm very grateful to be talking football with you guys, the listeners, the people out there right now listen to us live on here. So thank you for being in here. As you guys already know, this is an interactive podcast. So if you guys have any questions, if you want to question our list, if you want to talk about one of your favorite college football teams, get the fan hype going, man. The season's about to start. Get the fan hype going. So let us know who your favorite college football team down as well in the comment section. So let it fit it in there. We'll fit it on live and we'll discuss what that is right there, man. But let's get into the last part of our very long list of top 10 players in the college football ranks. And we're going to talk about safeties today. So that's why we got my guy LaMarcus in here, because he is the safety expert. So we're going to start with him. Top 10 safeties in college football going into the 2021 season. Start it off for us, LaMarcus.
All right, so to start off the list, safety is one of those positions where it's kind of the eraser. You look at the safety position like an eraser. You want your guy to be obviously a downhill type guy. Obviously, you got different modes of safeties. So I'm going to go with a guy who is a physical safety, more so a downhill type guy. He graded out very well in run defense, PFF wise. He was a young guy, but Arkansas's Jalen Catalon, he was a younger guy, but he was a very explosive guy who was always showing up on tape from watching it. And I watched a couple of games, and he was always around the ball, and especially being a young guy, that's a good sign. If you're a young player who's always around the ball, it means that you're picking up on the scheme really well. So Arkansas's Jalen Catalon was a guy to definitely keep an eye on, a young guy, which is why he's at the top of my list.
Ray, what do you think about Catalon?
I like Catalan. I had him just outside my top 10. But I like him. Again, I think the one thing we should touch base on, like with the cornerback class last week, this is a really deep safety class. And there's a lot of players that aren't going to be on our list that could be and will play in the NFL for sure. So
Definitely. All right. Well, let's hear your number 10, sir.
I have Kendrick Duncan from Louisville. A kid who's a big, rangy type kid who is one of them guys that I could see him maybe using as that extra linebacker safety guy that comes up and forces to run. Marcus saying a complete downhill type guy who's really physical but has nice hips and pretty fluid athlete too. So
definitely. All right, Ray, let's hear your number 9 then.
Stunning Weatherford from Miami of Ohio. I have it number 9. Another kid, 6'4", 220, big rangy kid, good fluid athlete, strong, stronger upper body more than a lower body. I needed him to develop his lower body a little bit more, but a really good football player. So,
what do you think about LaMarcus?
He's a guy who's definitely a physical downhill guy. I didn't watch much tape on him, but just from watching, he's obviously a player. In that defense, especially, they play a lot of passing team. They play a lot of high flying football in that conference. So it's like if you got a guy who's rangy, all over the place, it's gonna be beneficial.
Definitely, for sure. All right, who you at number 9 now?
So my number 9 was kind of difficult. Like I said, this list is kind of like it's fluid with so many. It's a very deep class. You have 2 safeties, 2 corners per team. On the field at the same time. So I had Braylon Trahan from Louisiana. He's a guy who obviously top 5 secondary at all times. He's a guy who makes plays, and then he was a definitely part of a strong defense for sure. So I had Trahan at my number 9.
All right, what do you think about Trahan, Ray?
Again, like Trahan, not in my top 10, but good football player.
So, Ray, let's get to your number 8.
I have, I'm going to not be good with this name, Isaiah Polamalu from USC. Another kid who's a good athlete, rangy type kid, 6'4", 205. Very good athlete. Had 73 tackles in 2019, dropped off to 40 this past year. Didn't play as well. Not as many games. Didn't play as well this past year as he did the year before, but I still have him as my number 8 guy. So
yeah, I feel like these safeties are getting bigger and bigger, like taller and taller rather. It's very rare to hear a 6'4", safety. And I feel like it's starting to become a trend where they're getting that kind of tall now.
I think a lot of it has to do with like teams wanting them to be almost feeling like an extra linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Or so a lot of teams, Miami included, they're only playing 2 linebackers really. They're playing edge guys that rush the quarterback at the other spots, but you get two real traditional linebackers playing on the field all the time, and then a lot of times 5 defensive backs, 3 safeties.
That was it 3-4-3?
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry.
They Miami does a lot of different things with their defense. They play sometimes they only play 3 linemen, sometimes they'll bring in 4. A lot of times they play 3 interior type guys and then play edge guys outside of them. Sometimes they drop into coverage, sometimes they don't. It's really weird. Yeah. Like even their front linemen, sometimes their defensive tackles drop into coverage. They shade back and cover backs and tight ends sometimes. So.
Ray knows all about that with the Miami defense. Lamar, who you got? Good.
My 8, I had Trey Sterling out of Oklahoma State. He's very, I would say he has experience, but his first season was in 2019, and we all know what followed that next season. So, he's kind of a young guy who has obviously a lot to show. He's going to come in, fresh start, new season, and be able to just come back and hopefully he picks up where he left off. But he was ranked highly in his PFF grade. And in that conference, obviously you're gonna get a lot of pass reps. Like you're gonna get a lot of pass reps, and if you're able to show up on PFF in a good grade at all, it says a lot because they're getting a lot of passes every game versus like SEC corners who, every deep ball or every play. I'm sorry.
Hey, got the little mascot there.
My buddy. But yeah, he's basically just he's gonna show up on tape. Obviously, he had a lot of reps at safety, and so I think that's a good thing in that conference, having reps and being locked down in those reps because they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna air it out.
Definitely. All right, and who you have at number 7?
My number 7, Jaquan Brisker, Penn State. He's another guy who's a Big Ten guy, physical, downhill guy. He's rangy. I think that he has a lot to show. I think coming into the season, he plays in a tough conference. You got the Ohio States of the world, so I think he'll have every opportunity to show up more on tape.
Definitely. Ray, who you got at number 7, Ray?
I have Daxton Hill from Michigan.
I was just about to ask about him, but go ahead. I was just thinking about
guy. He's the one guy who actually is a really good cover guy, very fluid athlete, probably one of the few guys that are true, free safeties out of this class. A lot of guys will do a lot of different things, but he's a true free safety as a guy who can cover like wide receivers and guys in the slot too. So good football player. We keep forgetting about Michigan because they had a really bad year last year. So
yeah. But we always seem to have some kind of secondary player that plays really well usually. And then, obviously our edge rushers, we usually have good defensive linemen and like 1 or 2, DBs that are really good. Lamarcus, what do you think about Dax Hill from Michigan?
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched much tape on the guy, so I'm not really gonna comment on that. But I definitely make sure I'll.
Yeah, I think he's a little raw still. He still has some rawness to him, but I think that he's gonna. I feel like he started bringing it together at the end of the season last year, which is just good because he can kind of start off strong this year and really put his name in that NFL draft ranks. Ray,
I
you
think
like
his
about to know?
I think his technique does need to improve a little bit, but I see a guy with, even though his technique wasn't sharp last year, he still has good speed to recover and make plays. So.
Oh yeah. He's an athlete. He's definitely an athlete
Yeah.
for sure. I was ecstatic when we stole him from what team was it that we stole him from? I think Georgia is actually.
Georgia or LSU, I think one of them. Oh no, Georgia
Yeah, it
or
was
Auburn. Georgia or
Georgia,
Auburn.
Auburn.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was Auburn. I was.
It may have been Auburn. It was one of them two teams. I know that for sure.
It might have been. Yeah, I gotta look that up. But Ray, who you got at number 6?
I have Leon O'Neal from Texas A&M. Another kid who's 6'1", 210, junior, had almost 50 tackles this year, 32 solo. Had 2 picks this year, 1 in 2019. Has gotten better the last couple of years. And I just love this kid, how instinctive he is, how he drops back into coverage, how he comes up to forces to run. This is the reason why I love the safety position. These guys they'll come up and punch you in the mouth and then drop back and show you how athletic they are too.
They're fast. That Texas A&M secondary is always fast, and I think that's the biggest. They have a good mold of safeties that they bring in. They have some guys who are still in the league who've been.
Yeah, they're defensively they've really taken some strides the last 3 or 4 years too. So
definitely. Lamarcus, who you got 6?
So at my 6, I had Jordan Battle from Alabama. I think he's a guy who technician. When I watch those Alabama safeties, and I actually have 2 Bama guys on my list. I just feel like I can project, like most people can, the Alabama safety. Very rangy safeties, body types, nice, long guys, and I feel like with the way they command the field, playing in that too high, that split field safety coverage, they can always display their range. They come downhill, fast, good open field tackler, and I think he'll have a chance. Obviously, top 3 safety, top 5 safeties, honestly.
Definitely. I know he's not safety, but we just went through preseason, a couple of preseason games already. Do you guys see that interception by Patrick Surtain?
Yeah.
It was the most technically sound thing I've ever seen. And you can tell this is the work of Nick Saban. He really coaches these guys, man. He really he's a DB guy, man. You can tell all in all just by looking how quickly, Patrick Surtain just uses technique and then uses awareness. Oh, okay, I see where Rock's about to go. Let me jump this now, and a lot of rookies, get beat by that or, hesitate to get to there. And he was instinctive. He was on it. He was very technically sound. I thought that I was very impressed by that. Not the whole pick 6 thing. I was impressed by his technique on that play. I was just like, that's crazy. So I just, I know it's not safety, but I just kind of want to mention that with the exactly.
The secondary in general, right?
Yeah, especially with Nick Saban. All right, Lamarcus, who you got number 5, sir?
So for my number 5, I had O'Neal from Texas A&M. I was going through the list, and I'm just like, I know what Alabama works with. Obviously, I don't take off. I'm gonna give credit, even though being on a good defense, like we talked about last week. You kind of look at those front guys, and I know that they will be able to perform with any defensive line. But I think with O'Neal, I think he's a guy who can prove himself more obviously on tape, just for the fact that he's playing at Texas A&M. Their D line is strong, their fronts are strong, but obviously it's not Alabama front.
Definitely. All right, so you already got very close in ranking. Ray, who you have at number 5?
Tyke Smith from Georgia.
Oh wow! I had him go higher.
I have him. I really like him. Another guy who's probably a true free safety, but a guy who's not afraid to tackle. Really good football player. He's a little smaller, only like 5'10", but he's still like a solid 200 pounds. So he's a junior, good football player. I like him. Actually like both Georgia safeties. I also like Lewis Kine, but I like him right outside my top 10. But I like both the Georgia players. I think Georgia, again, they get athletes on defense, and usually they let them go out there and play. So,
yeah, it gets some, no pun intended, but they really do get dogs on that team. Like these guys are really good defensive players. Usually, like you always see at least one or two get drafted really high every year. So,
and they'll be even better if they draft. They'll be even better if they drafted the state better. Just saying.
Really?
Yeah. UGA is known for not, I guess in the past, maybe like 15 years, I guess, not known for locking in the top guys in the state.
Marcus, let me ask you, is it because they don't want to go to Georgia or because they'd rather go to Alabama or Florida?
And that's a great point. That's a great point. But I think just how Alabama is such a national name, a national brand, right? UGA is just that, and obviously in the state, and honestly in the state of Georgia, UGA is probably bigger than the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's just like
100%.
100%, right? So when you look at that, it's like I've known some of the top guys in the state that I've played against, matched up against, that don't even have an offer from UGA, and so it's kind of interesting, like. And there's some league guys that currently in the NFL. We're not going to name them because Jerome already knows. But I think it's kind of like, you look at situations where they don't keep, for example, we look at Justin Fields, obviously situationally, they did what they had to do, right? Not holding on to him. The in-state guy. Obviously, Fromm is an in-state guy as well, right? But then you look at some of their defensive guys. You look at running backs. They had Chubb, but I think if they were able to truly lock down the state, which I feel like Georgia Tech in the next couple of years will really have an opportunity to sneak in some guys, as they change that program, like as they, hit a real transition. But yeah, I think that's the major thing. But yeah, they definitely do have to still get good players though, for sure. Development's still there.
For sure. All right, let's get to number 4. LaMarcus, you got number 4, sir.
So for my number 4, I had Brandon Joseph out of Northwestern. Very good player. Instinctual. He's smart, like very smart. He definitely is a presence on his team. He shows up almost every play, literally. And you can just tell like he's heady, like a very heady safety. He makes all the right calls. He's always around the ball. Doesn't miss too many tackles.
Definitely. I feel like Northwestern really like recruit like really smart football players. Like they don't always just go straight for like athletic kids. I feel like when you look at them, you could tell too, like they're really smart football players. Not always the most gifted or most athletic, but they're really smart guys. And that's why every time that's why every time you play a Northwestern, they're always in the game. Like they're never like either getting blown out or anything like that. They're always keeping it close and making it a game out of it because they're really smart players. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
no, Northwestern is known for smart guys. I can't even think of the name of their coach, but he's a really like I can't think of his name right now, but I know he was a guy who came in and really was like, he's been there for maybe like, I think 10 years, maybe like, but he's been there for a while and just kind of like turned that program around. I remember watching a documentary, just like a video about him and how he kind of like came in and instilled like a culture at Northwestern. But yeah, definitely very smart players for sure.
Definitely. Ray, what do you think about the Northwestern product?
I like Northwestern. You know what it is? They defend the run well. They run the ball usually well. They don't ask their quarterbacks to do anything they can't do. They're just a good, well-coached, solid football program. So,
I agree. All right, Ray, who you got for?
I have Bubba Bowden from Miami. Again, big athletic kid. 6'3", 204 junior, 74 tackles, 50 solo tackles, 4 forced fumbles, an interception. Just a playmaker. I think that Well, like we were talking about Michigan, Miami struggled last year. People really are not giving their athletes the credit that they deserve. Now, they don't deserve as a team to get credit, but there are some pretty good athletes on that team. So,
yeah, I hate when they do that. I really do because they're when you look at a program and you kind of dismiss a program and dismiss the players, but there are good players still on those teams. Like you know what I'm saying? So, all right, Ray, who you got number 3?
I had Brandon Joseph from Northwestern.
Nice.
Just talking about the Northwestern program, Pat Fitzgerald, coach of Northwestern. As soon as you stop thinking about it, it comes right to you.
Yeah. Yep.
But I am a fan of how they play football too. They're a good physical player up front. They don't do a lot with exotic defenses. They kind of like try to just play man on man and be more physical than the team across from them. And I always like that type of team, even though I've never been a Big Ten type of a fan. My dad was a Penn State fan. I know a lot of Michigan fans. I do like the fact that they play physical football in that conference. So,
I do agree with that. I definitely do agree with that. LaMarcus, who you got number 3, sir?
So my number 3, I had Malachi Moore from Alabama. He started 11 games in 2020. Very much of a standout guy on the Alabama defense, and that's really not saying much, is it? But I think that just being he's an all freshman player. His first year, he came in and just was dominant. Had 3 interceptions. He had 9 deflections and 44 tackles, which means he filled up the stat sheet. And in that Alabama defense, to get 44 solos, that's a lot. That's big because all them guys are flying to the ball. So to have 44 solos from the safety position, he had freshman of the year twice his first season. So just being a young guy, stepping in that role fast, early, and he's only going to get better. He was a young guy, so only going to get better.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say about Alabama is like it is hard for anybody just to come in as a freshman and start in that program just because you got so many talented players. And this kid, that's saying
a lot.
It's definitely saying a lot. It's definitely saying a lot about him.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, Ray, what do you think about him?
I think he's a good player. I actually have Jordan Battle a little higher than him. He's my number 2 safety right now. So I like both. What's that?
Go ahead.
I like both of them. I think they're both playing the NFL, obviously. But Battle had 39 solo tackles, 66 tackles. I mean, he's a pretty athletic kid and he's a big physical thumper from the safety spot. He's very versatile. I like Jordan Battle a lot. So
definitely. All right, Ray. I'm sorry, LaMarcus. We got number 2 then.
My number 2, Kyle Hamilton. Notre Dame, very big safety, very big safety at Notre Dame defense. I kind of know what I'm gonna expect from him. And so when I watch him, it's like you look at the hips, like can he move? He's 6'4". Can he move? Can he run? Very athletic, very athletic player. So just to see him run around, and make plays like covering tight ends, covering receivers. He can do it all, play in space, middle of the field guy. I mean, he can do it all. I think he's a kind of one of the guys. I'm just like, okay, I could put him at my top 3, and he'll be the only thing I'm skeptical about, obviously, and I'm just gonna be honest. I'm skeptical just about those Notre Dame teams as a whole. But I won't take anything away from him as a player. I think he's a really good player.
Wow. Okay. Well, it sounds like your dog Brinks agree with your pick there, and get the endorsement from the dog back there. Ray, who you have at number 2?
I have Jordan Battle number 2. I just said kind of.
I'm sorry. You said so. Who's your number 1?
I have Kyle Hamilton at number 1. I think he's the best safety in college football. I think he's going to be a top 5 pick in this year's draft. Marcus brought up some guys that leaving Georgia to play to other teams. Kyle Hamilton's one of them. He was actually never – I don't know if he was recruited by Georgia or not. I know he's from Georgia. and went to Notre Dame.
So that shows you a lot, like a Georgia guy going to Notre Dame. A guy like that.
You know what though, man? If you're a Catholic, it's all good. You know, like.
And I doubt he's a Catholic.
Oh, come on.
Kyle Hamilton, a kid that we actually interviewed when he came into college. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out on InsideTheHatches.com. Very safety, probably gonna be I'm gonna say he will be. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say he will be a first round pick this year. This upcoming year.
He will be a top 5 or a top 10 first round pick.
Yeah, definitely. Marcus, who you have at number 1 if Kyle Hamilton is not your number 1 guy?
So my number 1 guy is Tyke Smith out of UGA. I feel like he was, man, they've produced some really good safeties. And, I think following the guys he's followed, like I really think that influence is obviously there. His playmaking ability is off the charts. In the SEC, the safeties, they have to cover. They got to come downhill. They're really like an extra linebacker who still have to play middle of the field. They play a 3-4 defense. So their guys really, their coverage guys, their safeties really have to be involved on all facets. Like you're missing a defensive lineman, like in a 4-man front, missing a defensive lineman. So your linebackers, your outside guys have to play close to the line. Obviously, they're doing a lot of rushing most of the time. So that safety has to be able to cover a lot more ground, has to be able to show up on the entire field, has to make a lot of checks. And so I just think Tyke really was just like the centerpiece of that defense. And that Georgia defense is second to Alabama's defense. And I can never, honestly, I would never put Georgia defense over Alabama defense, because just when I go compare those fronts, in my opinion, they never compare just because of what Alabama has on the depth chart. Honestly, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody gets the amount of upfront players that Alabama gets.
Right.
I mean, other teams may get 1-2 guys, but not like Alabama does.
The whole front is, and they have 4. And the crazy part is, Georgia only has to get 3 a year. Yeah, they only have to get 3 a year. Alabama, they have to get 4 of those guys every year who are just as good. And I think it's crazy.
It's just crazy. I mean, if you look at the amount of athletes that play up front for M teams, it's crazy.
All right.
For sure. Well, I know this is not college football related, but I know we on the topics of safety, so I wanted to ask this question. As we all just seen, Jamal Adams used to play for LSU, very talented safety, just got paid. I want to know what you guys think about did he deserve the money that he got? And is there a guy on your list that will remind you of like a Jamal Adams the most? I'm going to review Marcus. What do you think?
So I feel like just going off of play style, being able to be all over the field, I would kind of compare Jordan Battle. He wasn't on my list, but I would compare Jordan Battle to Jamal Adams. I feel like he's one of those guys who he's bigger. He's a bigger safety. He's a big physical looking guy. But he can play around the box and excel around the box. He can excel around the box. He can play back deep. And Jamal Adams is just a football player. He's a pure football player. And one thing that I'll never do, I never say guys don't deserve money. and so I feel like, if you're in the NFL, I feel like you deserve everything that they're willing to give you. I just feel like, is it always a smart business decision for the team? Maybe, maybe not. But they do cost analysis. They do cost price analysis just like any other business. So if they're gonna pay a guy, they feel like it's in their budget. Obviously, whatever they pay him, they could pay him times 5. Whatever they're paying him. So I feel like he definitely does deserve that money for sure.
Okay. Ray, I'm gonna say the same question to you, sir.
I mean, I agree with Marcus on this comparison. I like O'Neal as a comparison. I like Bubba Bolden a little bit as a comparison. I think a guy who's like athletic enough to turn and run some. And man, in the NFL and life in general, you're worth what you get paid.
Yeah.
I mean, if he got Seattle as one of them teams that values secondary players, he's one of the best safeties in the league. He gets some money.
All right.
Yeah.
He's definitely showed like Jamal Adams, like media headlines and all that kind of stuff, they'll say certain things about guys, right, because of personalities. But as far as a pure football player, like there's not many guys in the NFL who are better than him. He's a 5'11", 215, 20 pounds, 220 pound safety who can cover guys deep. You know, I would say the only other safety that's better than him, and I kind of wouldn't say like physically more gifted is Derwin James. In the NFL, I feel like the only other say like more physically gifted. But the thing is, I once heard one of my coaches say, availability is the best ability, and so it's like Derwin James having season-ending injuries. It's like, you know, he's one of the top tier players of our generation, but being injured, you know, shows some kind of weakness in him, and you know, it's things that you probably can't, I can't notice. Like
some guys just don't get hurt as much as others, man.
Yeah, right.
Look at Carson Wentz.
I have a perfect example for the thing that we're talking about. Bob Sanders.
Exactly.
4 years, 5-year career.
As soon as you said that, the first person that came to my mind was Bob Sanders. Right. When he was on the team, the Colts were one of the best defenses in the league. When he wasn't, they were mediocre.
The dude
didn't have much to them because he could do so many different things in the secondary. He could blitz he could blitz from the slot. He could cover slot players. He could cover deep. Mm-hmm. He could come up and play the run. But when he wasn't there, which was, let's face it, like 60% of the time.
And he came in and he would come in the playoffs. He would come in the playoffs and make plays.
Yeah, let's not play Bob this week. Let's wait for 3 weeks down the road when the playoffs start, because that's when we really, really need him.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a shame because that guy who probably could have been a Hall of Fame player if he could stayed healthy. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, one of my favorite forgettable players that a lot of people forget about, Bob Sanders. I mean, I'm telling you, when he was on the field, he was there. Like you think Troy Polamalu was good, like, you know, and what Troy Polamalu was, don't get me wrong.
But at 5'8", 200 pounds, yeah, it's no comparison. 5'8".
If he would stay healthy, man, a lot of people would still talk about Bob Sanders. That guy was
the only problem I have with paying guys in the secondary is because if you pay one of them,
pay all
the other guy, then you got to pay all of them.
That's true.
I mean, then like you're gonna pay like 4 defensive backs $15 million a year.
Yeah,
that's like 60% of your salary cap.
I mean, if we're being honest though, the league got to do something about that salary cap. Sadly, that since all the NFL owners they negotiated themselves, it's kind of like it'll probably never get up there. But I just feel like the expenditures, like some teams, like the Cowboys, like that's one thing I like about Jerry Jones. Is like a lot of people hate the Cowboys. We're not gonna just be honest, but one thing that you can't lie is that Jerry Jones has a winning perspective, a winning attitude when it comes, and he'll literally put all the chips in as for the Cowboys. Because if we look at that roster, Cowboys had the best roster in the league, and I'm just being honest.
They really they got to do that. They have a very talented team.
Their roster's crazy. If you really look at it, the roster's crazy. Look at their linebacking core. They have 3 of the best young linebackers in the entire NFL, and it's like it's scary because it's like you can't get all those guys on the field at once. And once they figure out a way to really put the piece together, like I think it's really gonna be scary. But I just think he really finds ways to get his guys paid, and I really, that's one thing I would say I commend about Jerry Jones. Even if they haven't won anything, I feel like if he was able to just take those principles of a GM, like the money stuff and the personnel stuff, and just kind of let his coaches just coach, I feel like they'd be much better for sure.
The problem is because of Jerry Jones and Eddie DeBartolo is the reason why they invented salary cap.
That's crazy. That's ironic.
Yeah, that's why, because those guys would spend more money than anybody every year.
Cowboys,
the Yankees of football.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
I wish they just get like a penalty. Was it a penalty? Cap penalty.
Yeah, cap penalty.
Like the NBA just look.
Yeah,
whoever.
I think what they should do is have the cap, and then have an exemption for like your better players. Like if you're my number one defensive lineman, maybe I'm allowed to pay you a little bit over the cap. My number one safety guys. I mean, I know that would create some division, but it would also make it so that you could pay guys that are like the primo guys.
Right.
Everybody at a certain level where they belong. Because right now, a quarterback, even like some of the guys. Don't get me wrong, the quarterbacks that are getting paid a lot of money right now. Again, they're worth every penny if the team's going to pay them that money. But
Definitely.
if you look at it, like they're making so much money now that maybe that shouldn't count against the whole rest of the cap, because I don't know how to like. I don't understand like why you can't have exemptions for the better player on the teams, because now if one happens, one guy will make crazy amount of money. Now, like a guy like Lamar Jackson has to make like $50 million a year, and is he worth $50 million a year as a running first quarterback? Probably not.
But they're developing him to I think to fit, the mold, because Lamar's one of those guys that really doesn't get injured, if we're being honest. He hasn't really sustained a lot of injuries.
Not the injury aspect. It's the aspect of when you get to the playoffs. If you can't complete passes from the pocket, you're not going to win.
But I totally agree, and I just feel like, it could call it intuition. I feel like I've used intuition to guide me throughout my football life, just on both sides. But I just feel like him as a player, he's very flexible and he adapts very well. I feel like he adapts very well because if we look at what people said about him, people wouldn't think he could even be a quarterback in the league, right? 3 years, he's been in the league for 3 years as a starter. I feel like
4 years.
Huh?
4 years.
4 years. Sorry, as a starter, 4 years.
Yeah, I think he started his first year, didn't he?
He did after a few games.
Yeah. So about 4 years, right? So I just feel like I hope the best for Lamar. I think he's definitely, and the reason I hope the best for him because he's very unorthodox, and I feel like the league is great because we always see I don't want to compare him to a guy like Doug Flutie, but I feel like the unorthodox play, it kind of breeds other guys, and so now they got the guy, they have the one quarterback they have backing up the guy from what's his name? Anyways, he's a mold basically kind of just like Lamar, and I feel like they're intentionally doing that because it's like, all right, if I can develop this system, I've developed this system, which is something the Redskins couldn't do. RG3, they couldn't use that system and actually use it moving forward. It was built solely around his running ability, which is not sustainable or long term. But if I have a quarterback and I draft for my needs, my team needs, then if I could draft a guy with Lamar's his playing style, similar playing style, not the same player, but we can kind of work it and we can kind of use this system beyond just having Lamar.
Definitely. All right, well let's bring it back to college football a little bit right here, and let's talk about the state of the program. So this is a segment that we've been doing for a couple of weeks now. So if you haven't seen your team on there, go back to some of our podcasts or it's on YouTube.com. Go check it out, see what other teams we talk about. Today we got a list of teams that we want to talk about. Today we're going to stay in the Big Ten. I know we were talking about the Big Ten a little bit earlier, so let's talk about Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is one of those teams that a lot of people have high hopes for going into almost every year now. One of those staple name kind of teams in the Big Ten at least. So last year was kind of disappointing for them. It was only 4-3 last year. So let's go into their who they got under the team. So Graham Martz, which is their returning quarterback who's coming off his freshman year. So we have a lot of high hopes for him going into the next year. They got Jalen Berger as a running back, Danny Davis, Cedric Pryor as their wide receivers, Jake Ferguson, a really highly talented tight end that could be going to the NFL next year, right? Yeah, next year because he's a senior this year. So just to name some guys on our offense. On defense, Nick Herbig was one of them. Caesar Williams, cornerback. Scott Nelson is their safety. So let's get into the 2021 schedule and see how you guys feel about this team. So their first game was going to be against Penn State. They got Eastern Michigan. They got Notre Dame in their third game. They play Michigan, Illinois, Army, Purdue, Iowa, Rutgers, Northwestern, the team that we were just talking about earlier, Nebraska, and Minnesota. So I'm going to start with you, Ray. Better, worse, or about the same as far as production for this year?
I'm going to say a little better than last year, Jerome. I see like 8, maybe 9 wins here. I think Wisconsin is a good physical football team.
Mhm.
They are returning 8 starters on defense,
Yeah.
6 on offense, so they should be for pretty continuity, with each other. I think they're a good physical team. I think what it's going to depend on. I mean, I have them splitting with Penn State and Michigan right now.
Mhm.
I think that both of those games they could lose, but I'm just waiting to see how they fare. I think they'll. I see at least 8 wins though. I think Wisconsin's a pretty good team. So
Definitely. I'm sorry, Lamarcus. What do you think about Wisconsin for 2021 season?
I'm not super high on Wisconsin. I really feel like historically we know what they're about: strong O line, good running game.
Mhm.
I feel like they'll lose 3 out of the first 4.
Okay.
Those. I think they'll lose 3 out of the first 4. I don't like them against Notre Dame at Soldier Field. I don't like them against Michigan. I don't like them against Penn State. So, I kind of, if I'm just going off of that, I think it's kind of a not similar season. But I don't. They may. I think they'll definitely have more in the win column for sure. I just don't think they'll get those wins early in the season.
What's your take on the Grand Marks, their second year quarterback going in, having 9 touchdowns last year? He did have 5 interceptions, but he had 1,238 yards. Do you think that he might be the guy that can help them get to the next level, or they're gonna still kind of rely on the running game more and kind of work through?
I think with those numbers, he would have had to do a lot of progressing through the offseason in order for them to really make a super big stride. Because typically guys don't go from 9 and 5 to to 20 plus in a national championship or a conference championship. So I really feel like they'll be kind of similar to last year. I don't really see them doing much.
What do you think about him, Ray?
I agree with Marcus. I think they'll be about the same as last year. I think maybe a game or so better. That's all.
Yeah.
With Grand Marks.
I like Graham Arts. I think he's a pretty big, solid kid. Has some accuracy issues, but a lot of that I think is because of sloppy footwork. I think if his offensive line does a better job of protecting him, which they didn't do a great job last year when the games he started, I think they'll be better.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's get to our next team, which is Stanford. So Stanford, being in the Pac-12, they're 4-2, so only losing 2 games last year. The only 2 games they lost was the first 2 games, which was against Oregon and Colorado. So to name some guys they got on their offense, they're another team that's coming in with a sophomore quarterback and Tanner McKee. He's first-time starter as well, so we're gonna see how that goes. They got Austin Jones as a running back, Michael Wilson as the wide receiver. Excuse me. Tucker Taz as their tight end, and some returning defense guys. Excuse me. Their schedule, they are starting off the year with Kansas State. They got USC, Vanderbilt, UCLA, Oregon, Arizona State, Washington State, Washington, Utah, Oregon State, Cal, and in the year with Notre Dame. Lamarcus, how do you think they're going to be? Do you think they're going to be better, worse, or about the same 4-2 from last year?
I think they'll be better. I don't really like USC, and I feel like football team wise, I feel like Stanford has the pieces. They're very solid up front. They have some good receivers, a good tight end. They just graduated, or just lost one of their top corners to the draft. And I feel like them, hopefully filling in the secondary. I feel like they'll be a better team. But I think filling in the secondary, they're losing a big playmaker back there. So I think
the player that Lamarcus is referring to is Debo. I'm sorry, Paul Debo.
Paul Debo.
Yeah, he just got drafted by the Saints. Saints, right? I think. But But yeah, Ray, what do you think about this team for the 2021 season?
I think that there'll be, probably win about the same amount of games as far as winning percentage. I think that I like to think they'll lose to USC, even though I'm not a USC fan, but I don't know if they will. I think that I see like an eight or a 7 or an 8 win team.
Wow. Okay. What is it about the team that you like that you think they're gonna be better? The coach, Shaw. I think he's one of those, better coaches in the league right now. And a couple of years ago, a lot of people was talking about David Shaw all the time. What do you think about David Shaw? You think he can really get these players back to how you had them a few years ago?
I think that Stanford is a pretty good program, and they recruit good athletes. I think they don't always get all the athletes they want. I think that David Shaw is getting the players that he wants in there now. For a while, he had a lot of leftovers from Jim Harbaugh. Now he's got his guys. They have not played as well the last couple of years, but their defense has not been as good as it has been, and they're struggling to find that next running back because they were a really heavy running team. During David Shaw's his first few years there. And now you don't see them running the ball, and they're not as physical. But I still think there's a talented enough team to win, to stay right in their conference race. I think they're an 8-win team. So,
yeah, and that tends to happen when you lose Christian McCaffrey. I mean, let's just say it.
I mean, well, McCaffrey was the best, but they had guys just running the ball all the time.
Oh yeah,
they had guys after guys after guys.
Yeah.
No, they really did though. They really did. But yeah, I think they're going to be a better team too. I just I was actually kind of shocked how much better you think these guys are going to be this year. So we'll see. Let's get back to the Big Ten because you know how I feel about my Big Ten teams. We're gonna go to Indiana. It's going to be our next team. They ended the year 6-2. They were one of the most surprising teams in the Big Ten last year, being led by Michael Penix Jr. He's going into his sophomore year coming this year. I think a lot of people have very high expectation for him. Obviously, they're a really good receiver in Ty Fogel. I think that's how you Fry Fogel. The guy, he's going to be a really high-ended receiver coming into this year as well. To name their schedule they got for this year, they're gonna be playing Iowa to start the game. Start the year. They got Idaho, Cincinnati, West Kentucky, Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan, Rutgers, Minnesota, and Purdue. So Ray, better, worse, or about the same for them? 6-2. How much better can it get?
You know what, Jerome? I'm going to say about the same thing. I'm going to say like maybe a 7-9 win team. I'm looking at like Iowa. I don't think they'll beat Iowa. I think Iowa's a more physical team. Idaho, then Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a tough game. At Western Michigan is a winnable game. At Penn State is a winnable game. Michigan State is a winnable game. They're going to get trampled by Ohio State like usual. Then they play at Maryland, at Michigan again. At Michigan, and then Rutgers and Minnesota and Purdue. I see 8 or 9 wins. I think that they're going to be a good solid team. I like Michael Penix. I think he's a good athlete. I think take away that funky delivery of his, he could be a really good quarterback. But they're returning 9 starters on offense, 5 on defense, so they should be have some continuity with them. So I think they'll be as good as they were last year. I don't think the only thing that's going to hurt them this year is they're not going to surprise anybody this time.
Yeah, no,
that's the one thing I'm a little leery of. So
the reason I laughed when Ray said that because when we was doing our top quarterbacks, me and Ray was pitting Michael Penix in there. I had Michael Penix a little bit higher than him. And then, like, literally the day after, I text Ray. I was like, yo, Michael Penix releases weird though. his delivery on the football is really, really it leaves a lot to be desired. Let's just say that. Marcus, what do you think about Indiana going into the 2021 season?
I think they'll be solid. I think they definitely won't surprise anyone, but I feel like they have a good roster. They have a receiver named Miles Marshall, who's actually from Georgia.
Yeah, Miles Marshall.
Yeah, Miles Marshall, and I actually know some of his people. So I'm kind of biased, but I feel like he's a really good player. He showed up as a young player. He showed up in the Penn State game, the Penn State win. I think showing up early like that, and they're calling him their primary deep threat. I feel like if he can show up. I think if the other guy can show up, I feel like Penix. I feel like they can do something. Definitely won't surprise anyone else. So.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, having Feifel. I mean, I think that's going to be most defenses, primary target. Going against him, and they're going to scheme against him. I mean, a guy that had 7 touchdowns last year in a certain year. That's very impressive. So, maybe this will open some more opportunities for Miles to get more opportunities. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Ray said that before in one of our previous podcasts, if I'm not mistaken.
About Miles?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think that him and Freifogel will work well together. Marshall's more of a straight line, fast guy. Freifogel's a pattern guy and run good routes. I think they complement each other really well. And I like Indiana. I think Indiana's going to be a pretty good team again. I do. I don't think they'll sneak up on anybody, but I think that people should be ready to play a good physical football team. So,
yeah, I think 2020 they snuck up on everybody. I think they have everybody's attention now. So we'll see. All right, let's get to our next team. We're going to be talking about the Cal Bears and the Pac-12. So they were only 1-4. They only had 4 games last year. 1-3. I'm sorry. They only had 4 games last year. Most of them got canceled. And then they came into the season very cold and giving up a lot of touchdowns. They did win their last game that didn't get canceled, which was against Oregon, a 21-17 shocker. So let's see, maybe they might get better. Excuse me, they might be better this year. They're gonna be.
Laughing.
I'm not laughing at all. They're being led by their senior quarterback Chase Gabbert. So we see how he does. The 6'2", 225-pound quarterback, a senior guy. He has a lot more experience. They got most of their offenses coming back. Nico Ringo, one of their senior. They got a lot of seniors in their offense, honestly. So they got a lot of experience throughout the whole offense.
That's a good and bad thing.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a good and bad
thing. For sure. So let's talk about their the 2021 schedule. The first game they're going to be playing is Nevada. They're going to play Texas A&M right after that. They're going to play Sacramento State, Washington State, Oregon, Colorado, Oregon State, Arizona, USC, Stanford, and UCLA. So, LaMarcus, they only had 1 win last year, so better, worse, or about the same.
I think they'll be about the same. I think they'll get those 2 non-conference games early. I think it's the reason they scheduled those 2 non-conference in the first 3. Sacramento State, they'll get a win, and then the first one. Who's the first one?
Nevada.
They'll get Nevada, and then they'll get Sacramento. And I think early in the season they'll be looking like kind of the same. Like,
wow, 2-win season, huh?
I don't want to, obviously conference games, they can be decisive, it's in conference, but I think as far as just like pure matchups, they got some solid guys. Nobody who's just like a all world guy. Michael Wilson, he's a good player. Just didn't really do much. I mean, he had 19 catches last year. Obviously, they play a lot of games, so 19 catches in those games is pretty solid. It's okay. But then the year before, he had 56 for 672 and 5 touchdowns, which I guess in that conference, it's not very good for your top receiver. I feel like to be a legitimate top receiver in that conference, you have to have some earth shattering numbers because that's all they do. That's all they do is throw. So like your leading receiver. If your leading receiver doesn't have close to 100, then it's kind of like you must be running the ball, and then we look at your running game, and then obviously we look at everything else after that.
Definitely. All right, good observation. Ray, what do you think?
I agree with Marcus. I see like maybe 3 or 4 wins here. That's it, man. I mean, they don't even. The problem with that Nevada and Sacramento State is they had TCU in between. They're going to lose that game too. And it's just not. It's just not. It doesn't look like a great schedule for them. At Washington State, at Oregon, could they beat Colorado? Maybe. We'll see. But I don't see them beating UCLA, Arizona, Stanford. I don't see them winning them games. So I don't see a great season for them.
I just know they have a terrible time recruiting. Like
They do.
Like, yeah, I know they have a hard time recruiting because they go to guys just like they have Cal, UCLA, USC, Oregon, Arizona, Stanford, and then you're just looking at around like Cal. What have y'all won? What have y'all produced since Job at best? Or I mean, they had Jalen Hawkins. So
yeah. Hawkins.
I know. Yeah, I know they have a really good secondary coach, and I watched some of his videos on YouTube. Their secondary coach is a really good coach. I feel like that's why
Jalen Hawkins might be starting this year.
Yeah, Jalen Hawkins was nice in this. It's been nice in the preseason. Like he's been showing up a lot. And a funny story. He's actually he actually dates. I know he dates the daughter of. I'm not sure if y'all know who Kenya Barris is. But he dates his daughter. He's a producer. He's a famous like a movie and TV show producer.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Fun facts. Jalen Hawkins is a player that we interviewed from Inside the Hatches as well. A guy that we talk to a lot, and one of our close Inside the Hatches fans, playing for the Atlanta Falcons right now. I think Cal Bears, man, they definitely struggle, especially like what you say with the recruiting thing. There's not a lot of big top names, you get a player here and there, the safety that just got drafted by the Jets is another safety they had. I think his name. He's probably the highest name tier, players in the last couple of years that got drafted by Cal. So, they've been definitely struggling with the recruiting thing, and that doesn't help them at all when they're not winning also. So that hurts. All right, let's get to our last team real quick. It's gonna be Michigan State. I had to say, I'm sorry. That was looking at the game last year when they beat us 27-4. That was the roughest game I think I've ever watched. I think that was literally one of the except for one of those sneaky games when we lost to Appalachian State, and I always mention that to Ray. He's like, that was years ago. I still won't get over it, Ray. The Appalachian State game, I can't get over that game. This Michigan State game was very close to that this year. We got destroyed by their freshman wide receiver, White, who's not even listed as their top receiver this year, which is crazy. But yeah, they got last year there was only 2-5. Obviously, like I said, one of the games beating Michigan last year, a game that they wasn't seen to have been able to beat us, and they did. Michigan was bad last year too, but so there was 2-5 last year. Some games that they have this year, they got Northwestern. In the first game, they got Youngstown State, Miami, Nebraska, West Kentucky, Rutgers, Indiana, Michigan again at their house, at Purdue, Maryland, Ohio State, and at home versus Penn State in the season. Ray, 2-5 last year, better, worse, or about the same?
I want to say four wins, Jerome. I don't see many more than that. I think about the same as last year. I don't think they'll beat Michigan this year. And you know why? It's tough when you lose your little brother, dude. So that's why that game hurt you last year. You know, you're losing to the other Michigan team. You know, so yeah, I see maybe 4 wins. To be honest with you, Jerome, I see a win at Youngstown State, Rutgers, Maryland, and then maybe they win one of these other games. I don't think they will, and that's it. They're not going to beat Northwestern. I don't think they're going to beat Indiana. I don't think they're going to beat Michigan. I don't think they'll beat Purdue. They'll probably beat Maryland. Now the question is, can they beat out of Michigan, Penn State, and Nebraska? All 3 of them teams, or one of them 3 teams? Probably, maybe one, and that's it.
Yeah.
Definitely don't see them.
They their listed starting quarterback is Peyton Horn. Horn is going into his sophomore year, so he's a young quarterback. But they did just get Temple's quarterback that just transferred, Anthony Russo. We all know him, from the Philadelphia area. I'm not in the Philadelphia area anymore, but I used to live in Philadelphia area. Race still over there, so we know a lot about the Temple Owls and Anthony Russo. I thought that was a good pickup for him, but I don't know if he's going to start one. And also, my next question is,
I don't know. I'm gonna have to count.
Connor Hayward, a guy that we interviewed from Inside the Hatches, little brother of Cameron Hayward that played for the Steelers, and a guy that sealed the game essentially to beat Michigan last year. He's not on the roster. I don't see him on here. Did he get drafted? Do you guys know?
Don't know.
Not sure.
Or did he transfer? I don't see him on here, which is weird. He was a starting running back last year, and I know there was rumors about him transferring. That's why I was kind of asking, because he was supposed to actually transfer last year, and then he came back to Michigan State. So I don't know if he left the program. I'm not 100% sure. But Lamar, what do you think about Michigan State?
Michigan State, just from the outlook, they threw a lot of interceptions, had a lot of turnovers last season. I think that's the biggest issue. One of the defining things you said was Anthony Russo. And just looking at Anthony Russo's profile, I didn't really watch him much, but it does say he had 32 interceptions in 27 games. So that just tells me all I need to know about him as a quarterback. And the fact that they picked him up really wasn't smart recruiting. It shows that they're fishing for a starter. So if they're fishing for a quarterback, then obviously it's not looking likely, because you got to get a quarterback in free agency unless you're getting a guy who's really top tier. This in a transfer portal like a Justin Fields. And honestly, with all these good transfers like in the portal, like you gotta do better than Anthony Russo, a guy who's thrown a lot of turnovers. Like
the thing about Anthony Russo, a lot of his interceptions was not his fault. To put that out there.
I'm not going for that. If 32 of them, you were responsible for half of them. Okay, at least half.
Okay.
Bricks. Dog acting up again.
Yeah, not a fan.
Not a fan. Yeah. They're gonna struggle again this year. If they beat Michigan again, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because this team is not up to the par. They haven't been in a while, and it was just embarrassing that they beat us last year. It's just stuck in my head. I'm sorry, guys. It just. That game was the one game that stuck in my head. That against Minnesota, because that was our first game. We actually looked pretty good in that game. And then I don't know what happened to the rest of the season. But anyway, we're not talking about Michigan. We're talking about Michigan State. But that's going to do it for us today, guys. I'm a Michigan fan, as you can tell. But yeah, that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you guys for checking us out. We really do appreciate it. LaMarcus, thank you for getting on. We do always appreciate you getting on, man, and checking us out. Thank you for all our listeners that came on and watched us and got to listen to some great football. Next week we're gonna change it up a little bit. We're done all of the top 10 lists, so we're gonna change it up a little bit with the season. By next week, I think we're gonna have 2 weeks before actual game play. So super excited about that, guys. Super excited about a lot of these college football teams, a lot of teams that we're talking about now, and see where they go. And are we going to be right about a lot of these teams? Are we going to be wrong about a lot of these teams? It's definitely something to check out. You never know with college football. So thank you guys definitely for getting on and checking us out. Make sure you check us out again next week. Next Wednesday, we always on around 7:00 Eastern time. So definitely check that out. If you ever can't watch us live, which is fine, that's fine. You can go on our YouTube channel. So make sure you go in there, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. So you can tell when we are live. And two, if you can't watch us live, you could always go back and listen and watch the podcast from there. And if you want to put in your comments in the bottom, we will go back and answer your comments on there as well. Also, make sure you check us out on all our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Inside the Hatches, and also check us out on all our podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can find a lot of player interviews, a lot of guys that we talk about today. We interviewed a lot of them, so make sure you check that out, InsideTheHatches.com, Inside the Hatches / on your favorite podcast. So I'm your humble host, Jerome Jones. Thank you guys for coming out. We got my guy Ray Roberts down here, LaMarcus Bailey as always. Guys, thank y'all so much for checking us out. We hope to see you next week, where we're going to be 1 week closer to some college football, guys. I'm so excited about it. So let's hold on in there. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Almost there. It. So, guys, thank you so much for checking us out. We'll see you next week. Have a good one. Stay safe. And remember, it's your favorite college football podcast.